Okay, welcome everybody. You are here for Boundaries and Bucks, and I want to tell you a little story first. A number of years ago, I wrote a blog post, and it was called "Help My Teen Max Out My Credit Card." And there's a reason for this story. So it was a commercial on TV for a credit monitoring service. And dad had put a lot of college expenses, including some tuition expenses, on his credit card. And again, this was a while ago. The daughter was also using the card for her expenses. And he gets a notification that he's overextended and he's maxed out his card. And of course, he's upset about it. And what he does is he signs up for this credit monitoring service so that he will get notifications every time there are purchases made on his card for him and for his daughter. And that's great. We use all the tools that we have at our disposal. And yet there is something missing. And that's what this article was about, the fact that all the responsibility was still on dad to be monitoring what was going on, as opposed to getting the kid involved in understanding about money, where it comes from, how it's spent, how it's earned, and to appreciate the value of money. So that's why we're here today, at least that's why I'm here today, to talk about how you can have conversations, set boundaries, and avoid some of the frustration that comes with talking about money, because very often we are just lecturing to our kids. Oh, no worries, Preeti, about turning on the video. Don't worry. So again, that's why we're here. I'm going to go through 5 things that you should consider. I have questions for you to look at. If any of you had a chance to open up the worksheet that I sent, it's all there, but I will show it again on the screen, and we'll be filling in some of your answers as we go along. So let me ask you first, very quickly, what brings you here today? Why did this topic appeal to you so much that you're taking your time out of your day or night to be with us here? So you don't have to raise your hand, just feel free to unmute yourself. And if some of you are at all possible, please show your face. I want to see you and I want to know who I'm talking to. So what brings you? Lindsay, it's okay if you got kids in the background.
Yes, I do. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this, first of all. I have, yes, a whole crew of kids, actually. I will be focused, and there they are. My mom and my sister are walking with them currently.
Okay.
But I just have 3 of them, and they're with cousins. But my son is turning 13, and I want to get it right. I feel like there's so much consumerism and comparison and keeping up. And I want to just celebrate the simple pleasures in life, like spending time together and, you know, slowing down this fast, furious life of ours, and spending more intentional and meaningful, and really showing that value of a dollar. Um, we can make time back, but we can't make time back, but you can make more money, right? But like just trying to instill good values as well. So that's what brings me here.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love what you said about slowing down, focusing on what's more important or what feels more important to you, right? Everybody has a different way of prioritizing those things, and being more intentional about how you are spending your money. And then, of course, teaching your son about that. Anyone else? Just to get us started here?
Yeah, I think, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have to think our future, and we have to have a backup always, especially on this world. The the money is gonna be very valuable. Everything is gonna be very valuable, and we should be really careful how we spend uh, money or water or whatever we consume. So it's too much consume, it's gonna be not good for all of us. We are just consuming right now here, especially United States is one of the biggest consumer, and disposal producer, I guess, which is really bad for our environment, for our world, for our future, for our
Mhm.
kids' generation. Yes, yeah, that's why we are here too. I'm
Okay,
here.
thank you.
You're
Interesting
welcome.
point that you brought up about not only spending money, but spending resources that
Exactly.
that that we take for granted, especially here in the United States, that things will just come. They're plentiful and they're in the pipeline and they'll always be there. Same with money. Those things can change faster than we know. So thank you for that.
Yes,
All
thank you.
right.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Um, so when I look back, unless, and if anybody wants to share, just pop in. But when I look back at my own teenage years, so, and I'm older than most of you in this group, um, my parents had credit cards for gas stations. I don't know how many of you remember that. I don't know if they had credit cards for stores, but they definitely had them for gas stations. And there certainly was nothing like a debit card. There was no such thing as a debit card. And they were able to provide what we needed. And sometimes we had to save for the things that we wanted. And I distinctly remember, and I'm really dating myself here, but my senior year of high school, I got my acceptance to college, which was more of a privilege back then. I got my acceptance, and what I wanted and needed, I was a really fast typist. I took a class in school. I wanted a portable electric typewriter. It was the latest and greatest for the time, if you can believe it. And it was going to cost $300, which was a whole lot of money back then. So my parents told me that if I earned and saved half, they would provide the other half for me. I had a part-time job after school, worked 2 or 3 days a week that way. And after a couple of months, I had saved up or gathered up any other money I had, and I had enough to pay half, $150 for that typewriter. And so the deal was done and I had it. And the sense of pride and accomplishment that I got from that was immeasurable. Like I did this. I wanted this and I did this. Would things have fallen apart had I not had it? No, it would have been a little more difficult, but this was my goal. I worked for it and I was proud that I got it. Let's see, Preeti says, my child goes to an expensive school and there's a lot of peer pressure to spend. Absolutely. The environment you find yourself in, no matter what you say at home, the outside world has a pretty substantial impact on the way our kids see things and on what they want. Thank you for that, Preeti. So at any rate, today parents are spending more and giving more than most, I'm fairly certain to say, have done in the past. And things are coming fairly easily to a lot of our children. I won't say all, but to a lot of them. And they also have access to credit and debit cards. So with that, we all know how difficult it is to truly understand how much we're spending until we get that credit card bill. Imagine what it's like for teenagers who are just going, well, I have money and I'm going to spend it. That part of their brain about making more thoughtful, measured decisions isn't developed. And as Preeti said, there's a lot of outside pressure for them to spend, to live up to other people's standards for living, and to just take advantage of the good life, whatever that means to them. So I'm going to put up the worksheet. Let me just do a screen share. And we're going to do, I'm going to get, whoops. Okay, now give me a second to move these things around. And okay, there we go. So this is the worksheet that you would have received by email or by Messenger. And we're going to go into the 5 different aspects that I was talking about before. So if you have this, you can certainly take notes in it. You'll have availability to watch the replay for about a week, so you can go back and fill things in there as well. So when we talk about budgeting and financing, why should you care about this? Because your kids may be taking for granted the things that you provide for them and the extra money that you may be giving them for spending. So when it comes to learning these things, you are really going to be your teen's most important teacher. Whatever they learn in school about finance is important, and yet it's the hands-on everyday experiences that you provide for them that are going to be their biggest teachers. And what you say, just like school, what you say isn't nearly as important as the experiences that you provide for them. And again, they can't understand what they're spending until they see it physically coming out of their wallet. The credit card is a whole other concept. So let's take a minute to look at these questions, to ask yourself, not your children, but to ask you. And for those of you who can't see it, what's your money story? What messages have you given your children over the years through your words and deeds about money matters? And you can also ask them this too, because you may be surprised to hear what they think. They may agree with you, they may completely disagree with you. You may be sending messages that you didn't even realize that you sent. So what's your money story, and what messages have you given? What do you think are the messages that you've given your children over the years? For me growing up, it was, we'll give you what you need, the rest may be up to you. And they definitely followed through on that because there wasn't a huge amount of disposable income. So we've got Tunj and Lindsay, Lara, Edina, and Preeti. What have you got? Quiet group here today. Don't make me call on you. I feel like I'm back in the classroom. Okay, well, this is going to go a lot better if I hear from you, but I've already shared to you the message that I got from my parents and the message that I gave my kids. Well, it wasn't all that consistent. If I was really pressured and didn't feel strong enough to say no, or they made what they thought were convincing arguments and I just didn't want to fight with them, then sometimes I gave in. I had my limits. My son always wanted the really great brand name stuff. And I said, nope, I'm not spending that on myself, so I'm not going to spend it on you, but you can have something else that's in the budget.
Those days, the kids are very spoiled, especially on the countries they are developed and, financially good. All the kids are very spoiled, and this cause actually a lot of other problems economically and I mean worldwide, because of they getting lazy also. They think they can get everything with money. They get lazy, they don't work, but they get money from the parents. This is actually, I don't think so it's the best way. And in this case, I always talk to my son. He has to do his own money. We're gonna help him. Then essentials, but the rest, if he wants more, he has to earn this on his own. And he has a limitation also with expenses. That's what I think actually right now.
Okay, and Tunj, how good are you at sticking to that and saying, we'll
actually,
give you the essentials, you do the rest?
actually, we're very good on this because my culture. Actually, I'm coming from from Turkey. That was in my time, but a long time ago. We had to be careful with everything, whatever we give out and expenses. And in this case, with Aaron, he has his own money. He do already his own business a little bit, selling bikes and buying. I help him buying old bikes and then repair them and then selling. This way he gets his own money actually pretty much. He
Mhm.
expects his own money. Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Wonderful. Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yes, well,
Preeti shares, we have run a pretty budgeted household with the salary of an Army officer. Okay, I hear you there. Good for you. Lindsay, who's probably got to keep one eye on her children. I saw my family work hard for our lifestyle, and work ethic was a huge part of my learning. My first job was at 12 babysitting, and I learned from my parents who were both working full-time jobs and making sacrifices. Thank you for that. So a lot of us are sharing very
I
similar
was just going to
experiences.
say, oh, sorry, I was going to add to that. My struggle is that my son is in some travel sports, very busy. You know, we're falling into the very, I call it over-scheduled, structured trap of today's parenting and lifestyle, and trying to figure out really that balance of earning his keep and making him work. And so we do a lot of chores, but I wonder if I'm missing a mark there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How to have him earn his keep, so to speak. Okay. Thank
and
you. I appreciate that.
I think also, if you start to work earlier as possible, you get more successful in your life. You have more experience. The best thing is, I think the kids should start, do something early as possible. I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Then it doesn't come as a surprise to them later on either.
exactly. They
Yes.
get more experience through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, and I really encourage you to approach your kids and say, look, I know we sometimes talk about money and it's not an easy thing to talk about. Um, Here's what I think I've tried to express to you. What messages are you getting from me? And this is an important conversation to have and really gets them involved and to be part of the process and to help you fine tune the way you approach them about money. In my book, having a conversation about something, it applies to just about anything. It's an opportunity to learn and to connect without having an ulterior motive, right? It's not the conversation about, well, we need to talk about your allowance. And here's what I mean, you will have to have that conversation if you give them an allowance, but sometimes they really will appreciate having a discussion that has nothing to do with their responsibilities. When you ask them about their thoughts, you will definitely build connection and trust that way.
I'm having a thought right now. Not a thought. I want to say something.
Yes, Athena.
Hold on, let me turn on my video so people can see me also. Hi guys. So one strategy that we did was also, we are middle class people. We don't, we have our food, we have our house, everyone has a car, we have 2 cars, we are, I would call it, middle class. So very interesting is that we always say, when our son wanted something in the past, we always said, we cannot afford that. We have so many bills to pay. If he wanted he only wanted Nike socks, or just some pair of shoes, we would say, we don't have this money right now, we cannot afford it. So he actually was he was actually pretty much encouraged by that, to say, let me do my own business. And that's how he got into all that, preparing his own bikes or building his own bikes or doing his own. Right now he's into coins. He's collecting coins all over, and I signed him up to a class. So he's pretty much on his own path. And he says, Mom, if you don't have the money, I will earn the money for you.
Oh,
It's like,
how sweet.
yeah, like he would give me the money that I, would spend on classes for him, or, um, or would spend on him. And now he says, so when he earns, like, he just sold a bike for $950, and he goes, here, you have $20 for work. Like, he would give me that.
That's lovely to
It's
see
like
that
some,
spirit of generosity in our children.
yeah, but still, I don't think he understands the value of the money, because at one point he goes, we went to a chess tournament, and so our friends, they earned, you could earn $50 when you were like third place, and I don't know, $60 when you were second, and first you earn like $80. And he goes, well, Serena just got $80 because she won first place, but $80 is not that much. I'm like, $80 is a lot. It is a lot of money. I mean, think about, if you're not working, you're not constantly working. Yeah, but I earned $950 with my bike, So I don't think he knows the differences and the values between, like, he can't figure out what is the value on money. Like, $80 is a lot. $80 having and not having. That's a saying, actually, in Germany. That's what we say. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for sharing all that, and you have a lot to be proud of there. As far as his understanding the value of money, he's 13 years old. This is going to take some time until he has bills to pay, real bills to pay, and then he'll understand. But in the meantime, he's independent. He's an entrepreneur. Your son is an entrepreneur at 13 and willing to share a little bit of his profits with you. I think it's a wonderful start. Celebrate that as much as you can. Okay.
Thank you. I will. I'm turning my video off now.
Okay. Okay. Oh, the numbers just changed. Okay. There we go. All right. Anyone else want to add to that? I'm sure we'll be overlapping as we go. None of these things are, independent of each other. Okay. So why is this important to you and for your team? Really quick answers right here. You can put it in the chat. You can speak it out loud. Why is it important for you that your children understand about money? What will it do for you when they get it finally?
To prepare him for the life, for the real life.
Well, okay, and you want to prepare him for life because it means what feelings come up for you when you think about him not being prepared?
If you don't the value of the money, how are you gonna be successful? I don't know. You have to know the value of the money, and you have to really know how you spend the money.
Right.
Make money from this,
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And Lindsay says, I would worry less about my child surviving independently and thriving. Okay. So if we bring it back to ourselves, every one of us has a motive. For everything that we do, there's a motive. And usually, or very often, it's about avoiding pain. Right? So when Lindsay says, I would worry less, so I will feel better if my kid gets on the straight and narrow about money and spending it. And Preeti says, surviving independently is a skill and money is a big part of it. 100%. 100%. All right.
Yeah.
So as to why it's important to you or to me, it's because I worry, how are you going to make it on your own? If you're always expecting somebody to come in and save you from yourself and your habits, how are you going to do this on your own?
Exactly.
I'm not going to threaten my kids and say, well, I'm not going to be here forever. And one day I'm going to die and you're going to have to live your life yourself. That's not quite the right motivation because that's about me. But we want life to be more manageable for them, and we don't want to have to worry about them. Okay. So here are the ask yourself questions. Do I have limits for my children about what I will and won't pay for? Do I have an open wallet policy? What do I think my children believe about how I or we prioritize saving, spending, and investing? So are there limits to what I'll pay for? Or do I have an open wallet policy? And what do my children really believe about the way I handle money? So in my home, I've been more of the very conservative spender, you know, coming from that background of having what I need and having to work for what I want. It made me more independent, but it also made me cautious about how I spend my money. So I think a lot about certain purchases. It took me years to go out and buy myself this. This sounds like a really stupid story, but it's real. So I had discovered this author, it's got to be 20 years ago, this author that I really liked, and she wrote 3 books that came in this beautifully illustrated gift box, and the book itself was gorgeous with color illustrations, and it just spoke to me. And it was, back then, it was something like $35 or $40. And then there were the not fancy editions of the books. And I will share with you that I struggled over that choice because I had that more cautious attitude about money and not being frivolous with it. And I finally talked myself into buying the nice one. Number one, I could afford it. It wasn't a question of money. And number two, I wanted to do something nice for myself. But we all bring in, we inherit a lot from our upbringing, and sometimes we go with it, sometimes we rebel against it. But that's where I found myself sometimes. So I'm the one who was considered the more miserly one in my family. Anybody else? Do you have limits and enforce them? Do you say, I'll go this far and no further, I'll pay 20, you got to pick up the rest? You know, because that's what I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Okay, Preeti says not an open wallet policy. Yes, we do have limits, and it sounds from what you've shared, Preeti, that that you are careful about you need to be careful about your spending, and you are. And what do your children think about how you spend money? You know, they can look at you and think, oh, they have money for everything. They need something, they buy it. When it comes to me and I ask for something extra and they say no. Some of them are like that if they're spoiled. Lindsay says, definitely not an open wallet. Our son wants a pair of expensive shoes and he's saving for them. Beautiful.
That's nice.
Beautiful. This is exactly how children learn the value of money.
Yes.
Well done. And Preeti shares, it's just the peer pressure for the past few years that's getting to him. But I like the idea you mentioned about having him pay half. Yes, and that's what I did for that typewriter that I wanted, you know. So here's another example. I was in another group on Facebook recently. I kind of look around and see what's going on with parents. And this one mom said that her daughter wanted to go to the mall. She let her go to the mall with her friend. And then the girl texted her and said, I got my nails done, but I don't have enough money. Can you pay for it? Well, mom insists, I told you when you left that you were going to have to pay for that. I wasn't going to take care of that. And of course, they get into this argument via text, which is a horrible way to be communicating sometimes. And mom lost her temper and asked for advice and guidance. And my first reaction was exactly, Preeti, what you mentioned about the pay half thing. If it were me, and this is really important, and I was in a clear state of mind, not totally irritated, I would say, you know what? How much money do you have? Oh, you have $23. How much is the manicure? 45. I'll pay the 20. You pay the 23. I'll pay the balance. We've got to have our kids have some skin in the game. If we come in and say, oh my God, throw up my hands. All right, what, I can't just leave you there with this outstanding bill. I'll pay for it. No, you have money, you pay your share. Or you make the parameters very clear before your child goes out. And put it in writing, stick it in a text. Any thoughts about that? Okay, then we will move on. Any question? Also, ask me any questions verbally or in the chat. I want to make sure that we get through this. Communicating calmly and effectively. Well, there's the challenge, isn't it? When you're frustrated, remember that those words that you're going to say aren't leading to any kind of solution. So the first thing that I recommend is don't make a decision right away. Give yourself time to think about these things. Somehow we have this feeling that we have to give an answer right away, and 99%, or let's be generous and say 90% of the time, you don't. Your kid calls you from the mall and you say, hang out for a few minutes. I need to think about this. I'll call you back in 10. You need the pause so that you can do the thing that you know is in the better interest of you and your child. Do not, unless it's a true emergency, your kid can wait. This is all part of learning how to self-control, how to self-regulate. And for you too, it means that you don't make a decision that you regret later on. You owe it to yourself. Remember that you owe this to yourself. So, what other things have you done to help yourself make better decisions with your kids, whether it's about money or anything else? I'd be interested to hear that. Okay. Oh, Preeti, thank you so much for your participation. We've been saving a lot and talking about it. Okay, I'm curious, when you have a minute, if you could share in the chat, what exactly are you talking about and how are you doing it? Is it all one-sided, or is your child participating in that conversation? Thank you. Okay, so the ask yourself questions here are, what's really bothering me about my children and money? And how can I discuss it without criticizing and judging? And I'll give you one thing to consider there, which is don't be the only one talking. In other words, ask some questions. What do you think about it? Is one. What other questions could you ask your child to get them to think about this? That's what we're doing here. What other information do you need? What other information do you need to make a good decision, whatever that means? A good decision about what you want to do or buy. Okay, Preeti says, we were not guided by our parents to save when we were younger, and we started pretty late. So we want to make sure we teach him to save from the moment he starts earning. He does seem curious about stuff. Well, I love that word curious, Preeti, because that's something we don't see too much of or enough of lately. So if your son is, I think it was your son, if your son is curious about this, go with it. Help him explore. You know, if he wants to buy something, just as this question I offered, what other information do you need to make a good decision about what you want to do or buy? How much do you want to spend? Because when they have to start thinking about their own money, how much can you personally spend on this, right? When they start thinking about their own money, oh, when my son started earning money and I said, okay, now you can start paying for some of your clothes, he started shopping on the sale racks and he got what he wanted, or he made do with whatever he found, right? So start asking some questions. Lindsay says, delaying the gratification is the goal since their whole lives are surrounded by instant everything. Oh my gosh, Lindsay, you really summarized it there, right? Not instant everything. So this way they don't take things as much for granted. They're learning skills, they're learning delayed gratification. In other words, how to be a responsible person. Thank you. That was great.
Well, just to build on that, it's like, you know, instant questions, instant answers, thanks to technology, instant entertainment, but by no shortage of options, whether it be, you know, phones that our kid does not have a phone yet, but he finds a way to get his entertainment from an iPad or another device or a friend's phone, or, you know, but everything's instant. And so they just don't know a world without instant.
Very well said. They don't know a world without instant. Okay. That's in a nutshell, really. All right, got a lot of smart people here. And hopefully you're going to get enough out of this that if you're having trouble, because I'm not hearing from everybody, but if you're having a struggle with following through on things like this, maybe there are some tips in here from me and from the other parents that will help you. And also, after this masterclass, I'm going to send you something that are just like 2-line scripts to open the money conversations about a variety of topics related to money and finances and investing and so on. You know, you tweak them to fit your style, but maybe they will help you start with that. Okay, putting an end to entitlement. And I should add here, and enabling, because that's what we are doing. A lot of us, we are enabling. And sometimes the things that we enable are very small. But if we start to see a pattern, it's worth noticing it so that you can little by little. And this is not something that you're going to change overnight. You have to do one step at a time and get your kids used to the idea of any changes that you're about to make. I don't believe in just springing it on them and then assuming that they're going to be okay with it, because they're not for the most part. Okay. It is really difficult to say no to our kids. And I would love to hear from you about why that is. What's going on for you inside when your kids come up with something and you're just thinking, oh no, there's no way that's gonna happen. What's the emotion that's driving you to go there? Um, I have to say that when my son was asking for all these high-end labels, um, I was actually really frustrated because my in-laws were quite well off and they indulged him to the nth degree. And that really made it difficult for me to stand my ground. So I had resentment about that and resentment about the fact that he became spoiled. And I had no power over that. And I didn't want to say no, but it went against my nature at that time to say no. So what else have you got? What really is the driving emotion when you have to say or you want to say no to your child? Maybe you can't say no. Lara, thank you. My daughters just started a part-time job and they are complaining. They're both going to college in the fall and they need spending money. Can I ask what they're complaining about? Are they just complaining about the fact that they have to work or they don't like the work that they're doing? You can get back to me on that, but yes. Go ahead. I thought I heard somebody was going to talk. Okay. If you are talking, Lara, I can't hear you. I just hear a tiny touch of your voice coming through.
Mm.
Oh, hi, Elisa.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So you'll have to watch the replay for a lot of what we talked about so far. But right now, we're talking about why it's so hard to say no to our children, whether it's about money or anything else. And Lara was sharing only one, her daughters have part-time jobs now, but they're complaining a lot. One only wants part-time hours. The other doesn't like the filing they were asked to do. Oh, yeah. Imagine, I'm sorry if I'm sounding snarky. Imagine that. They don't like what they're doing. Okay.
I think for me, if I'm allowed to talk, this is Elisa.
Yeah.
My, I don't, I tend to hesitate a lot because I don't want what I'm going to say to come across the wrong way. But for example, my daughter is 15 almost and has a phone, but if she doesn't get her list of things to do done, then she doesn't get her phone.
Mhm.
And it includes things like, um, uh, when you wake up, you need to raise your shades, you need to make your bed. I'm not like utterly like you have to get it 100% right, but you have to have at least some semblance of having like washed your face. You can't have clothes all over your room from having dug through your basket full of clean clothes to
You just faded out, honey.
like it just, there's some level of decorum. And so it is hard for me to tell her every single time. So there is some level of, I just wanted to say, because you asked about the mood and the emotion, it's like a fear of confrontation. So when she wakes up and she doesn't see her phone on the charger and it's not there, she kind of knows why. She knows that she was supposed to look at her list and go through them. It includes like basic hygiene things as well. I still remind her, but she needs to, as a 15-year-old, take charge. That was the agreement when she first received her phone, that she would have to take care of her own hygiene. And so because it's a daily need to take care of your hygiene, I don't want to be in battle mode. So I think that's like, it has to do with money also, because she knows that it costs money to have a phone and have this privilege. So I don't know to what, I think it's like money is very similar, because both of my girls get gift cards, but then that's pretty much the only spending the money they have, and they're okay with just having that and nothing else, because they really just want their phones to occupy their time. They're not really the type of people who really want things a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you nailed it. And we have to say goodbye to Preeti now. It's the middle of the night for her. So we're very happy that you spent time with us today, and you will get the replay and the scripts. Good night, Preeti. Yeah, so Elisa, the fear of confrontation. That's the part. We don't want to argue with our kids. We don't want to have to deal with their pushback and their anger. It's just too much. Don't want to be in the battle mode. Yeah, that's it. That's one of the big things. And I know that applies to me as well, not just with my children, but
And
with
Fern,
all
if it's
kinds of
okay
people.
for me to, if you don't mind my mentioning, the one other thing is that when your teen gets upset these days in our family, my husband's been working inside the house for, the past 10 years now.
Mhm.
And with post-COVID times, it's almost like the moment the teen gets angry, then there is a tendency to want to buckle to create peace, because otherwise the work environment is not good, etc. So it becomes like a space dynamic. Like, she ends up owning the turf with her anger, and nobody can have the peace to be productive. Like, if somebody has a tantrum in my house, like, I'll forget about like 30% of my to-do list. It'll even if I, like, there are some tacit to-do lists that we keep in our brains, and there's some that are written down. The ones that keep us moving in a forward direction in that tacit to-do list, it just gets completely wiped out.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's important. And
Wow, this is
very,
very profound what you just said. I'm sorry for to interrupt you, but
that's okay.
Elisa,
Go
this
ahead.
was extremely honest and courageful of you to say, because when we have tantrums in the house too, and we do have that, the same appears to us as well. We completely forget where I put my glasses, what I need to do. And thank you for sharing this. I experienced the same thing. So you're not alone.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Elisa, I was just going to say, wow, when you said she owns the turf with her anger, it's a very powerful description. Very powerful. Thank you for that.
And I guess that's the tension, is that, like, growing up, I was never allowed to be given the turf with my anger. I always had to hide it. And so that probably made me more of an escapist, but I want her to show her emotion and be with her emotion, because the emotion is telling her something. So I'm kind of like stuck, because I'm not making her repress anything. But then at the same time, it's like a backlash against all of us, and it creates a seeming recycled situation of potential narcissism.
Yeah.
So I think, but we talk it out. It's just we just need to process it and talk it out, and finding another time when anger is not the main key signature, if you're a musician, and then just finding a placid moment to be like, you do know why you don't have your phone right now, or you do know why I can't let you buy this right now. You can't have a bubble tea twice a day, or even like 5 times a week, right? You do know this, right? Just kind of trying to find another off time. But it's hard to find that off time if you've been triggered.
Yes. So may I make a suggestion about talking about that? Rather than going into, you do realize why you don't have your phone, or you do understand that you can't have bubble tea every day. Go back to the thing that you identified as being so very important, which is the emotion.
Mm.
Sweetheart, I noticed, and again, I know you have certain concerns about your daughter that we're not going to discuss here, but I see that when I say no to you, you get really angry. This is a pattern that I'm seeing, and it's not that it's not that I'm saying don't be angry, but I just want you to notice the pattern or something like that. It doesn't have to be those words,
That's
but
so
just,
amazing.
right?
Yeah.
So just to go back to, I've noticed that you get really upset when I say no to you. And it's upsetting for me too. I don't enjoy saying no to you, but it kind of disrupts you, and then it disrupts me and dad. And then we have this whole big, I'm thinking of a word in another language. I have to speak English. We have this whole big to do, and everybody's off track at that point.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the real issue, or it's the important issue that you already mentioned, right? You said, I want her to pay, these are my words, but you said, I want her to pay attention to the emotions to help her make the connection. And given what little I know, it's going to take time until that sinks in, or maybe other ways of approaching it. But try to address that first is my suggestion.
Thank you so much. And I just put it in the chat just so that other people can kind of rehearse it in their heads too.
Thank you. Okay, so what Elisa said, and you can see this in the replay or copy paste it. I've noticed that you get really upset when I say no to you, and then it disrupts me and it disrupts dad, and then everyone gets off track. I would also say it disrupts you. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Because the way this is phrased, it sounds like you are the reason that we're all getting upset. And while that may be true, that's not going to help her or you in that conversation. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, great. What? Oh, there you all are. You disappeared for a minute. Okay, we are getting very close to time. I hope that you can stay on for a few minutes so we can go through the rest of this. Expectations and limits. So setting clear expectations. Once you're calm, as we've mentioned several times during our conversations here today, once you're calm and have had time to think clearly, you're ready to discuss what you are and are not willing to do or to pay for. And if it's something that you're paying for, you have the right and the responsibility to determine how much you're going to spend. And that can be really helpful for your teen to know what to expect, or your 10-year-old. Same thing. How much funding will you give? Will they have to supplement with their own money or find some kind of a job? Will you provide for certain expenses and not for others? So for, I'm going back to Lara, who was talking about her girls getting part-time jobs for spending money at college. Let's move past the fact that they don't like what they're doing or how many hours they have to work. Lara also shared other kids in their colleges have large spending allowances. They should be working for their wants. Okay, and in that script, the list of scripts I'm going to send you, it does talk about wants versus needs. All right, so setting expectations, kids, you're going off to college. I will provide X amount for, I'm making this up, Lara, so just keep that in mind. I will provide for tuition and for your meal plan and for your books, because those are essentials. But when it comes to discretionary spending, I'm willing to give you X number of dollars per month, and anything over and above that is your responsibility. Okay. Okay, and the ask yourself questions, and we don't have to talk about this now, but for those who can't see it, what expectations did my parents have for me? How have they served me or not? How will I feel when I create money expectations and limits and follow through with my own children? All right. So we've already covered the idea of possibly just saying a 50-50 split on something. Or if you want the fancy sneakers that are $350, my budget for sneakers is, I'm making up a number, $200. You figure out your own number. My budget for sneakers is 200. So you can either take the 200 and figure out what you can get for that money, or you can use your own money and save the balance, and that's how we'll finance it, right? And it's not the kind of thing where you're saying, you know, you're really taking a lot for granted to think that I'm going to spend that kind of money on a pair of sneakers. Who do you think you are, and who do you think I am? I'm not the little money bags guy on the Monopoly board. And I'm not your friend's parents. This is what I've got. Don't take advantage. That's not going to get you anywhere. The second that you say it, it might feel good that you got it out, but you're going to regret approaching it that way because your child only hears judgment and criticism there, and that they are the cause of all your problems. All right. So anywhere you can compromise or negotiate, do that. Maybe they can make their case for something and get you to give 250 instead of 200, or maybe you decide, wait a minute, you're giving me the business. Let's knock that down to 150 if you don't like that, but do it with a sense of humor. Any questions, observations, thoughts about what we just covered on expectations and limits? And I know I'm blowing right through it now because we're at time. Okay. And the last point here, shifting responsibility to your teen and young adult. This is what we've been talking about all along, and it's the result that you're ultimately going for. Letting go enough to shift some of that responsibility and accountability for your kids to be responsible for themselves. Your home is the training ground for what happens once they leave. Yes, there are outside influences, but you have the ability to set a good foundation, and it is never too late to start doing it. Kids going off to college, never too late. You start having those conversations over the summer about what you will and you won't do. See their thoughts about what they think necessities are. Our kids probably think that going out to eat at least every other day is a necessity. Something to talk about, not to point fingers about it, but to discuss it and just hear their feelings about it. Doesn't mean you have to change your mind about anything. But this is where you start. They're going to learn some self-control, how to make choices, how to think before making those choices, and to live with the outcomes. So your kids are off at school. They have earned X amount over the summer. You gently suggest that they give themselves a monthly budget. And then when they're done, they're done. And you're not going to send them an extra $100 because they spent their money in a way that didn't meet their goals, that they had all those impulse purchases. Okay. And the ask yourself questions here. Where do I need to let go and let my child take hold? Because we do respond from fear. Oh my God, what if they don't have any money left by the 16th of the month? Well, they're going to be uncomfortable, but if they have a meal plan, they're not going to starve. Their social life may be changed a little bit, or maybe they'll learn how to do things differently. How will this contribute to my well-being as a parent? How will this contribute to my child's growth? Okay, so that's what we've got here. The ask yourself questions you can look at anytime when you're thinking about this. Examine where you've come from, where you are, what messages you've sent, what limits you do or don't have and why it's so hard for you to set those limits. Why is it difficult to say no? And what do you really believe about money and its role for your children, right? So before we leave, any last questions or comments? Okay. Okay. What I do need your participation for at the very end here is your takeaways. Every event or coaching session I do ends with a takeaway, something that stood out for you, that you learned, that you want to try. So I think I'm just going to call on you. And if you could either leave your answer in the messages or speak out loud. Let's start with Tunch.
It was a great conversation, actually. We find out a lot of share issues also here. We are not alone here, you know. We have similar issues. It's good to know, actually. But we will work on it. It was great. Thank you very much for your
My pleasure.
participation. Yeah.
I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you were here. How about Lindsay? Lindsay, could you leave us something in the chat or turn on your mic? Well, you're outside. I don't know what you can do right now. Lara, what have you got for a takeaway?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I think it's that our kids don't have to have a standard of what their friends have, and it's something that should be determined by the parents and not the classmates.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And have you learned something today that will help you to stand a little firmer in your standard or to create a standard?
I think I have to be more firm in that if my children want to go out to lunch and spend $50, that's going to be on that's part of their budget for their spending money and not my budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so be more firm about what they have to pay for. Okay, Elisa.
Oh, hi. I would say it was extremely helpful to have a line of demarcation for them. I have been pretty good about saying things like, if anything, I have a daughter who refuses to buy clothing. And another daughter who has too much clothing because she won't grow wide enough to be able to fit into more clothes. So I think having sort of like a number. So for example, like for my teen who has too much clothing, I can say something like, I think it's reasonable to have 8 outfits that go together. Let's create 8 outfits, and anything beyond that you don't need. Also putting a financial number on, we are willing to spend $200 a year on, for example, sneakers, and that you can shop online for your own sneakers, and you can pay from your Christmas money if you want to buy a pair of sneakers that costs more, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And Adina, are you able to share something?
I'm actually not able to speak right now.
Okay.
I'm just listening, so because I'm
Okay.
in work.
Okay. If you
sorry.
could put something in the message, the chat.
Yep.
That would be good. Thank you.
Yep.
We got Lara, Lindsay, are you back with us?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I
There
cut
you
out
are.
for a
No
minute.
worries. No worries.
I'd say one thing I learned was, asking open questions to our teens in situations where money is not an influence of the discussion. There's no attachment to money in that moment, but just to make sure that they're tracking with the types of values that we're trying to instill with them. And trying to figure out, when those moments are, right? So like if it's, because one-on-one time is rare for us, but we can make it work.
Don't you need to turn off your volume?
Oh, sorry. Okay,
Um,
sorry. I had to leave, guys. Sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
Tom.
Oh, no
To see
worries.
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye.
You
Bye. Bye,
too.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Yeah, so just kind of trying to figure out, checking in on those pulses of,
Mm-hmm.
are they, because I hear what you're saying on actions are louder than words. And I think that's true. And so I think it's the double message is being mindful of, our own behaviors too. Like my husband and I are not big spenders at all, but um, but we don't also struggle financially, right? So like they don't see where we've put away the savings. I think in general, I mean, they don't see transactions. Like we had physical examples of currency growing up. They don't see that. And so
Yeah.
that's another area just to continue to like show them the value of a dollar. It's like, what does even a dollar look like when it's all digital?
Okay. This is very interesting what you're bringing up. They don't see the transactions. Sometimes what you could do, here's just a thought that I'm having, is that you can look at something that you purchased whenever that you had to save for, not the house, because that's just way too big. But let's say you redecorated their rooms and you had to budget for it or something. I'm making it up. I don't know what that might be in your world, but to find something that they can see that you had to save for, or that you had to put a spending limit on, and what you couldn't do in order to do that thing. And it would be something that they could appreciate, like not necessarily redoing your kitchen, but maybe a trip that you took that was a little something extra.
If it's helpful, what we have said to our kids, especially my older one, who's a rising senior in high school, she's been asking a lot of questions about which school she can apply to. And we've been talking a lot about how we've been saving for her college tuition. And then I'm really not shy about showing her something that I, drove to somebody's house to get a $5 organizer, which would normally cost, like $60, So, they can see where I'm skimping so that they can, vice, also something like, well, I might have bought a special cake today, but they also know very well that, if there was a sale on strawberries, that I got like 2 of them or 3 of them and I split it with my parents, or, like they, that way they're seeing my ability to try to move money, which is a form of energy, into a greater realm of generosity, so that it can benefit many, many people. And it's not, so that's kind of when I tend to talk about money, is how it's beneficial to like the masses.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
It's not
that.
a selfish decision.
Yeah, I think anything where you can put otherness to the goal is like great parenting as well. Outside of this topic and conversation, I just think it's so great. So I love that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you if you actually use these words, Elisa, but it's the idea about making choices.
Yeah.
I choose this one thing, which means maybe I can't do this other thing. right? I had to think about which way I was going to go here. Was I going to go out and spend the $60, or was I going to get it from somebody who had a used one that was in like new condition?
Awesome.
And I opted for the like new because I want to be able to provide something else for you when you go off to college, right? It gives me
Yes.
flexibility to spend money in other ways. And that's adult talk, but yeah, choices. They're making choices. Yeah. You are all wonderful. I'm so glad that you were here. And before I let you go, well, almost everybody's off. So I don't think this applies anyway to the people who are on the phone. Oh,
I'm still
Christina
here.
is still there. Yes.
I know. And
Yes.
I'll see you later at 6:30, right?
Yes. Yes.
Today.
Starting
Perfect.
at 6:30. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone. For those who are watching the replay, you'll only find out about this if you are watching the replay. If you have never had a one-on-one consultation with me, this is your opportunity. And you can just write to me at fern@fernweiss.com and we will set something up. Just let me know.
She's amazing.
Oh, thank
She's
you.
amazing, guys.
Well, I have wonderful people I work with. Alyssa, what?
No,
Oh,
I just
I'm
wanted to
so
say
amazing.
thank you. You're so wonderful and amazing. Yes. No.
All right, ladies. Good to see you all again,
Thank
sort
you.
of.
Thank
Larry,
you.
you're cute in your pink
Yeah.
sweatshirt there. Okay. All right, everybody. Take care and hope
You
Take care.
too.
Thank
to see you in the
you.
neighborhood soon. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye, Fern.